Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, or you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You get more information, find out about past shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week, what we do is we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Heather Schalk and Kim Butler with the band Chix and Friends. You guys, what you can do is wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay.
Hi.
So on my right, it's and then Kim's on the left. And I should mention that Heather started playing the guitar as a child and still has her, I can't believe this, Takamine guitar from the 1970s. She occasionally accompanies women's song, of course, in Asheville with her strumming. At the age of 59, she got the bug to learn the drums and started teaching herself. She was receiving guidance and tutoring from a well-known longtime local drummer, Robin Borthwick. Borthwick, sorry. At 60, she is shining in a band with her partner, Chix and Friends. Kim also started playing the guitar as a child and was in her first band by the age of 15. She has performed in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, and is best known for her role with Girlfriends, the 80s, and again in 2010. She left that band when moving to Asheville in 2019, and since then she's played all over West North Carolina with various artists, including the Lads, Ovada, if I have it right, Company Swing, Cat Williams, Mr. Jimmy, Will Ray, and more. She plays a wide variety of genres, including but not limited to surf, blues, swing, rock and roll, neo, psychedelic. A songwriter in her own right, Kim also records and produces her own material, the latest being a song about Hurricane Helene. So the first question I ask guys when I meet somebody for the first time is, as a kid, I got the fact that Kim grew up, I guess, around Pennsylvania area. Is that
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of where I'm from, Pennsylvania, New Jersey
Oh,
area.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, South Jersey.
Bucks County.
Bucks County. I grew up in Delaware County. Yeah.
Okay, not too far away. But let
Yeah.
me ask you this: when you were a kid growing up in Pennsylvania, there, did you know you always wanted to be in a band as a young child?
Yeah. And because I'm of a certain age, this when I was 6 years old, I knew I wanted to play the guitar. So that was probably somewhere around 1962. And times being what they were, most most kids my age, their parents, when the girl comes and says, "I want to play the guitar," it would be more like, "Well, don't you? No, no, no. I think you should probably stick to the violin or the clarinet or whatever, and or piano." And guitar, was just not an instrument that that people generally thought, well, why don't we see women playing guitars? So, it was a little odd request, but my parents were surprisingly open-minded for the early 60s, and they helped me do that. They said, "Oh, we'll get you a practice guitar, and if you can play that, then we'll get you a real one made out of wood." So the guitar, the toy guitars back then, I swear they were made out of like bakelite or something. They had like the molded frets and everything, and the strings, I swear it was fishing wire or fishing line. So, and trying to tune the darn thing was insane. But I guess they heard me making sounds, even if they might not have been great sounds, and then they decided, oh, I think she could do that. So anyway,
Do you still have that first guitar?
I don't. Yeah.
You probably don't want her to
I
have
probably
that.
don't want it now, but anyway.
Well, so that's cool. So you get this play guitar, and when did you get your first real guitar?
Uh, Probably somewhere around 8 or 9. Yeah. Um, and in the meantime, I'm still, in elementary and, now, middle school. And I kept thinking, well, maybe I should join the school band, so you have back then you had a music class once a week, and it was inside in the music room, and every year usually was the same instructor. And he'd sit there and he'd look at me. But after like 2 years of having me as a student, he's like, I know you want to play the guitar, but we don't have a guitar, because it's a band, so I'm like, well, which instrument am I trying this year? Like the first instrument I got was a violin.
Okay.
And I did not do well with the violin. In fact, after a few weeks, my mom said, Kim, I don't think that's right for you. So I stuck it back in the case and shoved it under the bed, and then the next year I came home with a trombone.
Okay.
Same result, the trombone went under the bed. And, by the time I got out of sixth grade and going into junior high school, I was like, I am done with the whole band thing unless they could give me a guitar. And then somehow I wound up with a glockenspiel. So anyway, but that's enough. That's enough about that.
No, what would be so cool, Kim, is in one of your gigs, if you dug out that trombone and started playing the trombone, you don't see too many women trombone players.
Actually, there's a couple here in Asheville. Yeah. Kendra Warren. I think she plays with Magenta Sunshine, and Emily Songster is. Yeah, so women are getting into. You're seeing a lot more women playing horns and woodwinds than maybe in prior years. So,
do you even know how to play the trombone, or remember how?
I don't think for me to try to get the lip going, that
probably wouldn't happen.
Nah, not gonna happen. No. I'd rather go watch somebody that knows how to play it.
Right.
So.
Kim, do you remember your first band you were ever in?
Yeah, a non-professional outfit. Me and my childhood friend from I've known her since fifth grade. She actually came and visited us in Nashville last fall, like maybe a couple months after Hurricane Helene. So it was me and her and this boy drummer, and we were all the same age. We all graduated high school together later on, and we were he, she, and me.
Great name for a band. You remember back to he, she, and me? You remember the first time you ever got paid to have a gig?
We never got paid. Oh. we were in like eighth grade. It was just a thrill to like be asked to do something, and and then hopefully asked back.
Do you remember the first time you got paid, period?
Oh, well, that would have been in Liberty 1920. Yeah. When I got into high school, I got into my first professional band, and that was an all-female band. And all-female bands were not a dime a dozen back then. This was like the early 70s. You had Fanny, which had a national audience, and there were a couple of all-female bands from, say, like the mid-60s. Goldie and the Gingerbreads was one, and there was a band in upstate New York called Isis. They had a lot of horns, and they were kind of almost like a power horn funk band. But it just was not common. Again, times have changed clearly. So in some ways, we were viewed as a novelty, which we accepted but kind of resented, because it was kind of like, well, we can play the instruments, they're not for show. I mean, it's and yes, that is the band that got paid, and we had management, and we traveled. We played. Actually, we did play in upstate New York. We played in all over New Jersey, both South and North, Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, and all over, at least the Philadelphia metro area of Pennsylvania. So,
and the rest after that, we say, shall be history. From
correct, right.
But yeah. I'll ask, if I can, Heather, the same kinds of questions. So I met you in the context of something else having nothing to do with your music, but how did you get into music, Heather?
I actually started in music when I was quite young. I think I was 5, and I started singing in the children's choir at church. just the pretty standard thing most folks start in church.
Yeah.
And then and from there I decided that I had fun doing it, and I learned to play some percussion. I played claviers and tambourine and triangle and shakers and all that stuff. And then I decided that I wanted to play guitar. So there you have it. So my parents did invest in a guitar. It was one actually that my father had. It was a steel string acoustic guitar. Killed my fingers, just killed my fingers. But I started with that and took some lessons, and then from there, after that they bought me my Takamine, which I still have.
Yeah.
And so that's what I played for about 10 years in church.
Your story is kind of cool though, in that you're training playing guitar, but all of a sudden now you've become a drummer. Is that correct?
That's right. Now I've become a drummer. Poof. Yeah.
And what
Fast
brought
forward.
that, what brought that on?
I've always wanted to play the drums. I always thought I was a really good air drummer. So I thought, why not just get something I can actually hit? But I did always have an interest in drums, but similar to Kim's situation, it was not something that it was not really, I guess it would be kind of taboo to have a girl drummer. It was always something guys did. So,
right. Yeah.
And my parents, who are still alive, they are fully aware of my latest adventure. And I said to them at one point, I wish I would have done this when I was a kid. And my mom said, I'm glad you didn't. Because it would have been too noisy. And my dad has actually said, you should have done that. You should have taken up drums back then. Too bad you didn't. But it is what it is. But I got the bug. And
have they ever seen you play the drums?
Only on like videos. Yeah. They live in Michigan and they are almost 90. So yeah, they're not traveling anymore like that. But yeah, we send them videos and stuff so they can be part of it.
Yeah.
We'll send them this video too so they can,
Yeah.
You know it. Absolutely.
Say hi to Don. Say hi to Donna.
Hi, Mom, Dad.
Talking about your repressed childhood that they didn't let you play the drums, but you decided you'd be a drummer anyway. So when did you start playing the drums seriously?
It was about 18 months ago. I got a little bug and said to something to Kim, and so we kind of purchased a used set of drums, and I started messing around with it. And then a friend of mine came over and said, well, here, let me help you with this and that, and here's some tidbits. And so I just started listening to the music in my little headphones, and I just started trying to play along with it. And if I had questions, I would ask somebody. And now I have a very close friend and mentor who works with me kind of regularly to get me into the right, doing things the correct way, and teaching me extra little things so that I can have a little more than just, normal stuff.
Have a little bit more than rudimentary fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Let me ask you both too, in terms of learning, especially in your case, a new skill. Is it possible to learn this stuff on YouTube, or is that a way to pick up skills like this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. I utilize YouTube all the time. That's where I get all the music to play to. There's a lot of, Drumeo has a lot of different people that they feature and different styles of that on YouTube. Some you pay for, some you don't. But yeah, there's so much access to be able to learn things.
And live too. She comes to a lot of my gigs with my different ensembles, and she's always watching the drummer. Sometimes she watches me, but most of the time she's watching the drummer.
As she's watching, is she drumming along also? You see
sometimes her? I see her. Sometimes I see her at the table, drumming on the table.
I told you I am a really good air drummer.
Well, let me ask you, how much practice does it entail? Let me ask both of you, because you're relatively new into the drumming.
Yeah.
Kim, you've been doing it for a while. How often and how much do you practice, Heather?
I try to do at least 1 to 2 hours every day. So and it can get tiring depending on what songs you're doing and how straight through you're working through it. But yeah, that's my goal, is to typically try about 2 hours a day.
Same thing too, Kim. How often do you practice or play?
She practices way more than I do, but anyway,
She's been playing a very long time.
Yeah, and you know, as we get older, you know, our hands get a little arthritic, so I will play the bass and or the guitar, you know, minimally, you know, maybe like for half an hour, just, you know, running through patterns, you know, doing scales, you know, playing chord progressions, just for the limberness of it. Now, if I have songs to learn, that's a whole different story. That can take hours, you know, just to go through and, you know, listen to the parts and, you know, be able to get them right. So, but I at least try to do a little bit every day just to keep myself limber, my hands in particular.
Let me ask you both in terms of rehearsing or practicing and performing. How important is it to you know, protect your ears? Are you wearing also earplugs, or do you wear something to protect your hearing?
I do not when I'm playing.
Oh, yeah.
No, I do when I go to a venue and the music's too loud. I do,
Yeah.
but no, not when I'm playing. I don't.
I generally have not worn hearing protection, and I mean, it's relatively easy to do now, because back when I first started, I mean, there really wasn't any
Right.
hearing protection. You could buy these things that looked like marshmallows, and you just like crammed them in your ear,
Or pieces of cotton.
Yeah, it was like very high tech, and yeah, didn't necessarily work. And what I, you know, prefer to do now is just try to, and hope and pray that the rest of the band follows my lead. I try to maintain a volume level that is, you know, hasn't, you know, not going to blow everybody out of the room. And that's how I prefer to play, and that's, you know, with the people that I play with. And I think now that we're all older, and some of us are not hearing so well anymore, I think it's, you know, definitely become a, you know, a concern, you know, that, you know, well, I don't want to make it any worse. And of course, you don't want the audience to go through that either. So anyway.
So if you would then, so I got the fact that you both been playing and doing stuff separately kind of thing. Take it forward, if you would, to Two Chicks and Friends. What was the idea behind that, or who came up with the idea, and how long have you been in existence?
Well, we've been in existence, I guess, since the hurricane.
Yeah.
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 We
Oh, right, because we played in the parking lot. That's kind of how it started.
Yeah. After Helene, we're literally right up the street from the joint next door, the place you mentioned earlier, and they had been closed. And then they couldn't be open. But what they wanted to do was to open the restaurant. You couldn't go in because they didn't have any water. There was no running water. And what they were doing was they were cooking and serving 3 meals a day for free for anybody that, you know, needed something to eat, you know, and a lot of people did, you know. So I talked to Jay Poe, the manager, and I said, you guys want a little entertainment here in the parking lot? So he was like, yeah, you know. So that's what we did. You know, it was drums and guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just two of you initially?
Just the two of us.
Just the two of us. We just pull up to the parking lot. Some days we would be there for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Some days we just did lunch to dinner, you know, but we pretty much showed up every day, and we played a couple hours, and you know, it just kind of started gelling. And I think the thing that touched us the most was the very first day we did it. This woman, it might have been after the first or second song we played, and she came up to us to say, I just want to say I have not heard live music since the hurricane. And she was practically in tears.
Yeah.
And
she thanked us.
She was so emotional, and, you know, whether it sounded good or not, she was just happy to have the live music. And, you know, it just reinforced for me in particular you know, that music has that ability to heal. And, how much, and to bring people together, and how much power there is in music. So anyway,
yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think um it was enlightening for us as well as the people who actually came to came to get food. And we also saw the local joint burst at the seams with donations of food and blankets and clothing and all that. So it was, we really didn't know how to give back to the community, and that was our way to be able to give back to the community. Was to try to bring some happiness there. And that's how it kind of started. And we were two chicks in the parking lot.
That was
So when did it become, so I love that's a great name for a group, isn't it? Two Chicks in a parking lot. So when did Two Chicks then evolve from Two Chicks in a parking lot to Friends?
When the joint next door ended up being open for the first time, it was a Wednesday. Jay didn't have any bands booked or anything because everything was closed and canceled. So he actually said to Kim, would you guys like to come inside and play actually on the stage? And so
instead of in the parking
lot. So we called up two of our friends and said, let's just make this a group effort. And that's what we did.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny too, because after like a couple of weeks of doing the parking lot thing, we started having guests come and sit in with us because they were, they found out what we were doing. And, like Sal Landers, she brought, her crew with her, and we did a little set with Sal and, David Tarpley, a Fairview resident, and now our guitarist and Two Chicks, Mark Tumo,
also a Fairview resident.
Right. It just, and then we wound up seeing other musicians come through, like Jason DeCristofaro.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So it was just it was interesting. And it was actually fun. I mean, fun, we again, nobody had money. We weren't doing it for the money anyway. We were just doing it to kind of raise spirits. So, it just turned into something that it just kind of mushroomed, and now now we get to play inside on stages. So
from there a child was born, right?
Right.
Well, Kim's background is kind of interesting too, because, and I'm going to ask you about this, that at the same time you're playing with Two Chicks and Friends, you're also playing, as we mentioned earlier, with about 73 other groups, it seems like.
Well, actually, once the hurricane hit, I was in the habit of just prior to the hurricane, my schedule was getting so overwhelming, and I'd sit there and I go, oh my God, I can't catch a break. And then it was like the hurricane gave me a huge break. I mean, not exactly what I was wishing for, but and then of course all the destruction. But so my schedule blew up. I was not having 73 gigs a week at that juncture. I'd be lucky to find one. Things are coming around now, but it's taken 6 months. It's taken a little time. But we're all, the musicians in this town are incredible, and the sense of camaraderie and community and the willingness to help others. I mean, I and a lot of my friends have done so many benefits to help not just musicians, but, beloved, Asheville, and other charitable organizations. So, and it hasn't bothered me one iota that I'm not making any money doing this. It's, somebody's got to do it. Somebody needs to step up and do stuff, and, to help other people. And I've never had a problem with that. So
not too long ago, I saw a great idea that I haven't seen too many local places do it. But what they would do, guys, is they'd have, you eat at a local joint, for example, wherever you ate, and then they'd have a check, and the check would say tip, for whatever, and then an optional tip or additional tip for the band, which I thought was just, I don't know if you've seen that, but I thought it's a great idea, remind people that, you'd like to get a couple bucks at least. Have you ever seen that?
Right.
I've not seen it here, but
No,
I think up north in Delaware they would do that on occasion.
Yeah,
it's
right.
certain
I
places.
think it's really good because it encourages people to appreciate the fact that, hey, you guys should be paid for your efforts, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And sometimes it's just, people just need a reminder. They
Yeah.
don't, they just don't think about it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, and it's hard for me in particular, like if I'm playing at a benefit, to help other people less fortunate, and I'm not getting paid to play the benefit, which is fine. I that's been my mantra. I feel funny putting out a tip bowl for myself, or just because if money did go in there, my inclination would be, oh, we should just give it to the people that need it. So now that things, yeah. Go ahead.
You could also, Kim, you could just give it to Heather, and let her get
Right. Okay. Well,
you don't want to take it.
Thank you for the idea.
Exactly. How often do you practice as a band? So you've been in business for only a couple months here. Do you practice weekly, monthly? How often do you get together as a group?
We have been doing weekly. We've just had some recent changes, and I think we're going to get back into the weekly.
Yeah,
we had kind of gotten away from it for not a long time, but a little bit. But yes, we're pretty weekly, pretty regimented at weekly.
And as insofar as having actual band practices, all together, there's when you're in multiple bands, like I am, sometimes it's hard to commit to doing like a weekly for every band, and so we try to stagger things a little bit, for one band, we'll practice maybe twice a month, every other week, and then that leaves room on the other weeks for another band that needs maybe a semi-weekly practice. So it's hard to do a lot of practicing on a regular basis, just because that's all you do.
In your introduction, we talked about the fact that I guess in your spare time you also write songs. That's something else you do?
Yeah, I've written songs, God, since I was a kid, since I was 15. So yeah, a lot of them are not very good, I'll give you that. But then it takes a while to develop, and to get it going. Some of those early ones I wrote when I was 15, be like, puppy love, like woo. So as I've gotten older, your perspective changes. You of course have the benefit of lived experience and shared experience. So there's so many things to write about, and so many things to draw inspiration from. And of course, a million songs about the hurricane came out after the hurricane. And I, of course, had written a song like everybody else in the area about the hurricane. And, but it actually, it felt good to do it because it at least it let me get it out, and I almost didn't care if anybody heard it. I had it out. I put all my, innermost thoughts down on paper, and then, on tape, so to speak. And at least, I got it out of my system, and now I move on and start, doing a Devo retrospective. No, I'm just kidding.
I honestly think that based watching her write that song and record it and master it and digitize it for sale or for listening pleasure, I think it was probably very therapeutic for her.
Yeah,
it was a way for her to heal from the storm. Some of us, we, I don't know, have a glass of wine or whatever. And for singer-songwriters, I think, that's their way of healing and bringing closure to a particular topic.
Well, 5-6 years ago, I would have had a glass of wine. I would have had a lot of glasses of wine, but
now, two questions.
We don't do that anymore.
But if I can, Kim, now this song about the hurricane, have you performed that in public also?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And more importantly, you mentioning when you started writing songs, do you still remember the first song you wrote? Do we have that anywhere?
Oh
Do you have
Lord.
that in there?
I probably do. And God knows what it's called, but I have yes, I have a cache of sheets and sheets and sheets of lyrics and some songs that are partially finished, some that I assume are finished, but they date back to the early 70s. So and when I really need a good laugh, I'm going to go dig them up and read through them, because to read, adolescent songwriting. I mean, I'm sure that's high on everybody's list.
When you write a song, do you ever change it over time?
Oh God, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it sometimes it changes because it is a matter of relevance. Stuff you write 40 years ago, that just may not be relevant now. And that takes nothing away from the great American songwriters, like, Irving Berlin and, all of Gershwin. Their songs have a universality to them that it just transcends time. Their songs do not get old, in my opinion. And, even going through the quote modern writers, with the modern era of writing, which I guess you could say started in the late 50s, early 60s in New York at the Brill Building. And, the writers like Goffin and King, Barry Mann, Cynthia Weil, Neil Sedaka, they all worked together in this one building with all these little cubicles. And they worked for a music publisher. And the goal was to write a hit song every day. And there's no soundproofing. You can hear all these pianos and all these little cubicles trying to come up with the next hit for, Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet, and they're all, cacophony, and somebody's going to do it, and it's going to be one of those writers, so.
Well,
But those songs to me are timeless as well, because they address very basic things. A lot of them are, romance, love, imagination, up on the roof, when I'm feeling down, I got to go somewhere to get away from it all. And I just climb up the fire escape, because I'm living in Brooklyn, and I sit up there on the roof and I just close my eyes.
Heather, remember this. What a great idea for a song. We should, up on the roof. What an idea.
Oh, right. I know.
But
I think somebody already did that, though. And she made a boatload of money doing it. That was Carol King.
Stacka was amazing. You talk about Stacka. And the same question of you. So Kim has written songs. Have you ever written songs, or have you ever had a desire to write anything?
I have not. I've written things down anticipating that they may one day become lyrics to a song, but no, songwriting really isn't anything that to this day has been a major interest for me. So I guess, it's kind of a boring answer, but no, not really.
Yeah.
Well, guys, let me ask you, moving forward from here. So we're into late March. What's upcoming in the future for, I guess, first of all, Two Chicks and Friends? What's upcoming?
We are actually going to be performing on the first Friday in May at the Mars Hill Theater,
right,
in downtown Mars Hill. And first Fridays, they shut the streets down in the town, and they have vendors and food and drinks. And then after that's over, you kind of go on over to the Mars Theater and hang out there. And so we'll be performing on May 2nd at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. And you'll probably be able to catch us at the joint. Well, probably somewhere, I would say summer, May, June, maybe July.
Definitely let me know, because that's right around the corner from me. So
well, then you're around the corner from us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we're not
right.
Let me ask you both too, the same thing too. If folks who are listening to this want to find out more about Two Chicks and Friends, what's best bet to find out more?
Well, they can find us on Facebook. We haven't got a Two Chicks page yet, but they can just look me up, Kim Butler or Heather Schalk, and they'll get all the information about Two Chicks right now. One thing I do want to say before we go is that when we moved here at the end of 2019, I had a lot of trepidation about leaving an area that I was so well known in back in the Philly area. I mean, I was that was a long time for me to be in one place and then to uproot and come to somewhere that we didn't know a single soul when we moved here, except your boss. And so I was petrified about trying to, get started on a music career when nobody knew me. And I need to pay some props to some people that were very instrumental in helping me get my feet wet here. One of whom is my dear friend Peggy Ratuz. She's wonderful. She got a hold of me, I think through Al Schlim or Sally Sparks, two other local music luminaries. And, Peggy's been so supportive, and we've actually done some things together, and she's an inspiration and somebody that I never forget. You never forget the person that gives you a hand to help you. And that's Peggy. And, Sal Landers is another one. The lads, David Irvin, Stephanie Irvin, and David Tarpley. They gave me my first performance shot, to join them. And there's so many people, but those really are the ones that helped me keep this dream going and made it even better.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because that's really cool. And said I'm very fond of Peggy. Just says beautiful stuff, and
Oh yeah,
you mentioned. But let me just conclude by thanking both of you for being my guests on this edition of Blaine's World show. Hopefully, we'll get to see you in Fairview sometime in the near future. Yeah. And I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And next time, maybe we'll actually meet in person. That'd be great. Thanks.
That would be great. Awesome. And just tell everybody, you're never too old to learn something new.
That's right.
Great advice. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.